Well, I guess this is good as any. I just don't like the normal. I don't like to appear normally. What is this, infrared? I got lots of things I can talk about, but nobody ever pays any attention, so maybe I should stick to the really, really controversial issues to really piss off conservatives. But when the Dobbs, I think this is what happened, and it's weird. My opinion on gun control changed when they overturned Roe v. Wade. Because honestly, I didn't think they'd ever touch that. I really didn't. And it made me much more libertarian. I says, how can you do that? You say that what's define human being? That's a very personal thing, your own body, your own personal life. The government can't get involved with that. And then I started thinking, I've been arguing with the gun control people. They said, this is a fundamental right. This is about my right to have guns on my own property. I don't think you should walk around with them, but I'm thinking, if I believe so strongly in privacy and the sanctity of your own body and the sanctity of your own autonomy, how can I really be against like banning guns? Because that's like a personal thing too, isn't it? Well, it isn't when you go out to a school or to a supermarket or to a shopping center or a mall, which, I mean, fortunately there are no malls, but all these places people go where there are lots of people and they just gun them down. I will say one thing though, this thing about gun-free zones. You want a real gun-free zone? I'll give you an idea. I'll give you an example of an authentic gun-free zone. Singapore. They used to have gun problems. You look it up back in the 70s. See, I'm going to get controversial now and get everybody upset, so maybe they'll actually watch one of my videos. But for the most part, I'm not saying this just to make you angry. I'm saying it because I actually believe it. Singapore in the 70s, gun control was pretty strict there. You needed a license. But they were having trouble with, like you're saying, all criminals. Criminals still had guns. They tried to keep them out, and they'd smuggle them across the border from Malaysia or Australia or wherever guns came from, and there were mass shootouts. And then in the 70s, there was this cop that got shot, and they just had enough in Singapore. And I guess they were already hanging drug dealers, and they just made it a law. If you point a gun at a cop, or at anybody for that matter, eventually it's just anyone, or shoot a bullet, and it goes anywhere near a person, that's the death penalty. Also, smuggling guns. If you're caught with a gun, an unlicensed firearm in Singapore, I guess theoretically it is possible to get a gun, but it has to be licensed, and they don't give a lot of they don't approve a lot of license. And if they do, it's for a gun club, and you have to keep it at the gun club. Alexa, what time is it?
It's 6:41 p.m.
All right, well. So guns are virtually illegal in Singapore. Not completely, because I know people are going to, oh, they're not illegal. There's one gun store in Singapore. I think that's it. There are like one or two gun stores in Singapore. Still. You can get like a double-barreled shotgun or something like that. Or a semi-automatic that can hold 3, and you shoot it at a target. And then you put it in a locker. That's your because there's no hunting in Singapore. So virtually speaking, for all practical purposes, there are no guns. It's like saying, well, rich people pay high taxes in Sweden, Well, yes and no. I mean, if you have an income, you do. But if you invest, like I think, Alexa, what is the capital gains tax rate in Sweden?
In January 2015, Sweden's capital gains tax rate was 16.03%.
Okay, Alexa, what was the capital gains tax rate in Switzerland, the more conservative libertarian place?
In January 2016, Switzerland's capital gains tax rate was 22.8%.
Now you see what that is there? Switzerland is the libertarian low tax place. In for many ways, the tax. Okay, Alexa, what is the income tax rate in Switzerland?
Switzerland has a progressive personal income tax system in which the average tax rate increases as the taxable income increases. Switzerland has marginal tax rates ranging between 0% and 13.2%.
Now that's on the federal level. Each canton has its own tax system. Alexa, which canton in Switzerland has the highest tax rates?
From sigtax.com, especially the Neuchâtel canton is where all taxpayers have to pay the highest tax rates.
Well, it varies. I mean, it can like one canton, your tax rate can be like double. I remember seeing a video on YouTube. I'm not going to go get it because it'll take me forever, and I was amazed. It says your income in Zug canton or some canton, I don't know where it was, but like the most, where the taxes are the highest, is $1 million. Your income, not your wealth, but your income, because there is a wealth tax. Alexa, does Sweden have a wealth tax?
From ssrn.com, today Sweden has neither an estate tax nor a wealth tax.
Alexa, does Switzerland have a wealth tax?
From Breakorder.com, Switzerland is one of a small number of developed economies that still impose a wealth tax, which is charged on cash, securities, real estate, cars, and art.
Okay. So if you're rich, you're not paying a wealth tax in Sweden. You're not paying an estate tax on your estate. And your capital gains tax rate is actually lower in Sweden than it would be in Switzerland. Now there's the de facto rate and then there's the in facto rate. It's like the in facto rate in the 50s was if you were an American millionaire, you were paying 90% on your income over like $250,000. The de facto tax rate was you could get loopholes, and some people didn't pay any tax at all. None. So there's like de jure, which means by law, and de facto. Like Amsterdam's another good example of that. Technically, marijuana is illegal in the Netherlands, but they don't really enforce it in certain places. Like there are 5 square blocks in Amsterdam, where at least as long as you're not hacking people to death with a butcher knife, they'll pretty much leave you alone. Which isn't always a good thing because the Russians came in and there was human trafficking, and these poor Ukrainian girls were like sex slaves, and the Chinese came in and sold heroin. So that experiment hasn't been shut down, but it's been cut back. They've reduced the number of prostitution stalls, and they've cracked down on hard drugs quite a bit. So it was an interesting concept to let people do it. You know, it was like you can do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anybody. That was the libertarian thing. The thing was, you were hurting people. Prostitution hurts people. It hurts like the teenage runaways. Drug abuse. If you get hooked on heroin, you're useless to everybody and you just steal. Guns, law-abiding citizen. Well, here's the thing about being a law-abiding gun owner. A lot of law-abiding gun owners, they're the ones that go, oh, he was such a nice person. He always obeyed the law. Nobody thought he'd go crazy and kill 30 people or shoot his family. A lot of law-abiding people, when they have the temptation of that gun, because you don't know, they might have mental problems. They might be a wife beater. They might drink too much. Now, here's the thing about abortion, This is the thing. If you want an abortion, do you really want people that want to have abortions to bring kids into this world and raise them? Say, oh, you put them up for adoption. Do you want their genes passed on? I don't mean to be harsh. I don't mean to be mean. I'm not talking about Hitler exterminating people. But I think there's a certain merit to eugenics. Now, when I say this, I don't mean that we should forcibly sterilize. Sweden, like people say that Sweden socialism was more like the Nazis. There was a little bit of that. They used to sterilize, I think, it was retarded people, drug addicts, and alcoholics, and women that were chronically promiscuous. There was a long list of people that if you got on, I mean, not just if you were just less simple or something, but if you had serious mental problems or were like really debilitated, Um, you're not supposed to say the word mentally challenged. Your IQ is really low down there. A lot of it was done for humane reasons. It's like a retarded person wouldn't understand what sex was, what was happening to their body, and you definitely didn't want those genes passed on. That's logical. Now, are you going to herd people into concentration camps and exterminate them? Of course not. There are varying degrees of this, but people engage in association fallacies, and as soon as you hear the words eugenics, you think Nazis. Well, you know where this whole eugenics thing started, and they say it was the progressive movement. Not really. In the 20s in the United States, in the early 19th century, everybody was into eugenics. It wasn't just Hitler. Everybody thought eugenics would be a great idea. And the Republicans liked it too, and I'll tell you why. Instead of spending money to take care of people that were like disabled and feeble and unemployable, you just put them in some horrible, ghastly institution and you'd sterilize them so those genes would not be passed on. So don't say that that's a left-wing thing, because everybody was into it. And then gradually, as people discussed it, a lot of people said, it's up to God who gets put into this world. And the Bible says that you're supposed to take care of everybody. We shouldn't question it. Now, do I go along with that? Not completely. But I will agree with one thing if you're watching this. You have got to be really careful with eugenics. Look at me. Got a bad heart, got diabetes, I'm morbidly obese. I got cellulitis, I got neuropathy in my feet. I'm bipolar and schizoaffective. I kind of had a breakdown in law school, and since then I haven't been much use to anybody. And then I had a lowly security job, and even that became too much for me, and haven't done much since. I worked long enough just to get on Social Security, and then I tried to get off of it, but I'll tell you what happened. My dad was an old school Republican. He didn't care if you ran around naked in the woods, if you were gay, or he was pretty humane about welfare. He said, look, okay, these women are on welfare, but they should give them daycare too, so that they can go back to work or get training for work. But anybody that works doesn't get a free ride. If maybe they were brought up wrong and they weren't given a work ethic, you give them a work ethic. If they don't have any skills, you give them some kind of basic skill to just get them on that minimum road. They're off the road now. They're just wandering around the woods, or they're stuck on a mud puddle. You pick them up, and you, like a rising tide, lifts all boats. Well, not if the boat's got a hole in it. Oh, what do we got here?
This is a reminder. I've been asleep for 16 hours. This is a reminder. I've been asleep for 16 hours.
Well, I'm awake, so it's okay. So I haven't been sleeping. I did finally get up, although I guess it's time for me to go back to sleep now. God, my head itches. It's a good thing I have this cap. I just keep itching my head. I just keep itching and scratching, and it's like I'm a heroin addict or something, or a speed freak, but I'm not. It's just I got diabetic skin. So, it's like, we're back to my subject. I got diabetic skin. I got like open lesions, and then my legs leaking. And so I have all these, like, thank God for Obama, thank God for Medicare. I got a bottle of shampoo over there that helps seal my skin up. It makes it less itchy. And I've got medicated, I bought that on Amazon, medicated Vaseline, so my skin won't break open and get infected. But I've got a diabetic neuropathy in my feet. Well, I'm old though. Bad things happen to old people. But I mean, where are you going to draw the line with the eugenics? My dad was legally blind in one eye, but we all have very bad eyesight. But we're smart people. I got a sister who's a doctor. I got a sister who's a corporate executive. My brother's like a genius. He's like an absent-minded professor, but he holds patents for like metal for cars. Like designing thinner metal, so your engine's lighter and it's more fuel efficient. I don't think he did anything with the electrical stuff, but really smart people that benefit you. And then there's me. I tried to go to law school, so I would sue you for it's going to be like Better Call Saul. Slippin' Jimmy says you malpractice. This, that, civil rights. I mean, yes, fortunately for you, I had a nervous. That was my contribution to the American society. I had a nervous breakdown and never did become an effective lawyer, because God only knows how much damage I would have done if I would have been able to effectively, um, navigate the legal system and start suing people. So I could never sue. Should you be able to sue um, gun companies if their product does what it says it's supposed to do? Yeah, even I see that's it. Even I'm not sure that it does. It's supposed to kill people. It's not if it malfunctions and blow ups in your face and that's. But you point it at somebody and it kills 15 people. I think if these semi-automatic guns, maybe that we should discourage these companies from just. It's like the opiates. These companies that just flood the market with guns and flood the market with these opiates. Sure, there's an appropriate use for opium. There's an appropriate use for a semi-automatic rifle that shoots 30 rounds. You shoot it at a target. If there's a riot, I mean, it's very limited. The legitimate uses for both are very limited and should be restricted in a rational society. In an irrational society, you declare that owning a deadly weapon is an absolute right and you can't infringe on it. That's just dumb. That's just, I hate to use the word retarded, but that's why most people in the world think Americans are insane. And besides, even the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. They didn't give you a gun so that you could shoot at Nancy Pelosi. You're supposed to be protecting the government and protecting her. So basically it's inferred that if you're a loyal citizen, you form a militia to protect your own country. You don't try to subvert it and overthrow it like Shays' Rebellion. So right there, I do have some knowledge of constitutional law. I understand why these people running around saying they have a right to use a gun to anytime the government does anything that they don't like paying taxes. And most of these people claim to be Christian nationalists. If you read the Bible, Romans 13:6 or something like that, it says, you must obey the government because all governments are sent by God to maintain order. The only people that should fear the government are bad people that break the laws. And this is when Caligula was running Rome. I mean, he was really decadent. You pay your taxes, you obey the laws, unless the laws are like, to human sacrifice or something like that. But it specifically says one of the laws, it doesn't go against the Bible to pay taxes. They specifically stated paying taxes is your Christian duty. That's something you should do. And on top of that, it says if you've got two of something, you're supposed to share with someone who doesn't. And then there's that one quote. It says that in the early Christian days, true Christians sold everything that they had and owned things in common, like communists. No, we know that didn't work out so well as far as an economic policy. Because the Puritans tried that when they first got here, and it just didn't work. So I'm not saying that, like communism. But what I'm saying is, if you think that capitalism is endorsed by Christianity, it really isn't. It's very kind of communal, the tithing and everything. You're not an individual getting rich. You have a obligation to the poor. So there, it's just like, oh, you have a choice. Well, you have a choice not to commit adultery or murder. Did the Bible say, if you're in a good, generous mood, don't rape your children and sell them to the local brothel? It's just, that's your choice. You're not allowed to even worship graven images, which is basically what we've done in this country. We worship graven images. We worship weapons. I don't have a gun, but I have this. This is one of the graven images. Oh, weapons, death. We have a wicked Babylonian system where we worship a pagan idol, and the pagan idol is a weapon of death. What else do we worship? Well, this is an American money, but it's money, see? That's a Hungarian pengo, my money collection, which I think is kind of neat. It's kind of a neat thing. I got to be careful with it. And then I got these from these. Do you know who started modern capitalism? You blame the Jews for being greedy and everything like that, and you think it's the English. The Italians actually invented the banking system, but it was these these wicked, alien, corrupt people, the Dutch. The two things I can't stand in this world: people that are intolerant of other people's cultures, and the Dutch. That's from a Gold member, Austin Powers. It's not me. I didn't say that. I'm just repeating something I saw in a movie. You know, like Archer or Family Guy. They're always making these pop culture references. This is what we worship. I guess I got American money. I could probably show you that. But then you know how much money I was worth. Do I have any? After paying the heating bill, I don't think I have a lot left. How much money do I have in this wallet? Well, this is what we worship here. I'll show you what I have left, just for an emergency. I don't have any. I used to carry hundreds back in the day when I had money and I was working in market research and I had a pretty good job. I had a 9mm Browning. Well, it was a Hungarian 9mm from the standard military issue from the Hungarian People's Army. I got money now. I had a FEG R9. If you're a gun person, I liked it because it was simple and it fired. As long as you didn't put Hyder shocks in it, it would fire pretty good. And it was basically a Browning high power knockoff, but it rusted because it was communist technology, communist steel. But I liked it. You'd pull a pin out, and it was easy to take apart and easy to put together. And under the 9mm, which I kept loaded with 13-1 in the chamber because I was a different person. I was an idiot. This is why I believe in gun control. I realized I was a smart person. I was in law school. I was well educated, and I was still a menace to everybody around me because, well, they got me on medication now. And it was so easy. You wouldn't believe the guns I had in my closet. I had just rows and rows of semi-automatic rifles. I never had a semi-automatic shotgun because they were too expensive, but I had a Winchester shotgun, and I had a Mossberg shotgun. Okay, I had two. It didn't have rows and rows of shotguns. I had an SKS. I had a Valmet M71S. I had a Chinese Norinco AKS. I had a MAK-90. It was after the period where, the first ban, and so they had to sell sporting guns, so they sold this AK with this huge piece of wood on the end of it, the stock. Because, the one with the pistol grip you can still go out and kill people with it. And then after you're finished running out of bullets, you could probably beat them to death with this huge hunk of wood they stuck on the back of it. Okay, now here's the thing about abortion. I don't think it's anybody's business. I think Roe v. Wade should be the law of the land. I'm not for Dobbs either. I think that should be a low. See, that's kind of contradictory. Maybe Heller wasn't such a bad ruling, because there were a few venues or few areas where gun laws were just ridiculously restrictive. Washington, D.C., New York City. They've had Chicago, but they're still licensed and they're still pretty strict there. But they've come, the gun regimes in those venues have become more like what I think are rational. They're not like you just walk into Walmart and buy a gun like it's a hammer or a knife, because it isn't. It's much more deadly, even rifles. But yeah, handguns specifically are the ones that they should really, really regulate. These semi-automatic rifles that can take lots of people out. I don't care how many the body count is at the end of the year. It's the potential and the fact that the specific crimes they use are just so horrendous. It's like child pornography. How many children are raped and kidnapped every year out of the whole big picture? Yeah, there are thousands of people murdered in this country every year. How many of them are inspired by child pornography? I don't know. I really, really don't. Nobody's ever done the statistics. Compared to the whole total, it's probably not a lot. Does that mean that it's not so important? Let's let child pornography be legal. I'm not libertarian on that, because I do see that if you're attracted to kids, there's something really fucked up in your brain. And if you look at those pictures, that might make you want to go out and do that. And those people, you can't cure them. They let them out and they do it again, and they eat the bodies, and they do all kinds of ungodly things to poor children. The priority shouldn't be on curing these people, anyways. Maybe we should have the death penalty for them. I don't even think it's their fault. I think they're born with something fucked up in their brain, which is all the more reason to kill them. Or maybe we're too civilized for that. Okay, I respect that. We don't just kill people. But for God's sakes, don't ever let. I mean, California actually did something that I liked. After the child molesters term was up, they went from prison into a mental institution, and they said until you cure this person, you can't let them out into public unless you find some place like out in the desert or something. And so they say that their rights are violated. I don't care. I don't think child molesters should have any rights. They've got thousands and thousands of child rapists and really dangerous people that have served their time, and they're not being let out because they're a menace to the community, criminally insane. Maybe that's what we should do. I think that's what we should do. If you molest kids, you're criminally insane, and they just put you in a mental hospital for the rest of your life, where you can rape other mentally ill child molesters. I don't know. You never let them out. Now, I'm making an analogy between child molesters and gun owners, and I know that's wrong. But here's the thing. Say we're going to compare rifles to pornography. A regular hunting rifle, normal pornography, does it inspire people to go out and do bad things? There are some studies that show that isn't necessarily the case. I mean, when pornography first became legal, there was a big jump. But that was because of the baby boom, and there was a demographic of very young people. The demographic of males between the ages of 16 and 24 exploded as a percentage of the population. And one of them was me. They're the troublemakers. They're the violent, aggressive, rapey types because they're just impulsive and they're aggressive. They got hormones, they got muscles, they got very little life experience, and their brains are not yet developed. So they're trouble. But they found in 1996, when the internet first came up and pornography became accessible online, a very strange thing happened. And it's this old case of does correlation prove causation? Does correlation prove causation? And it could have been something else. Could have been the fact that at the same time they were locking up lots of people for long times. The sexual assault rate dropped, and it was about the time that pornography became widely accessible online, and they didn't regulate it except for kiddie porn. They went after you for that, and good. I'm glad they did that because I think that's a special case. Another thing I think is this BDSM bondage thing where they tie women up or they tie men up and they torture them. I don't think that's healthy either. If you've got an interest in tying people up and inflicting pain on them, there's something wrong with your fucking brain. So it's like looking at pictures of naked women or naked men, is that necessarily bad, or watching them have sex? As long as it's healthy, consensual, I'm not sure that there is. And I'm not sure that there's any evidence that it's bad. It's like with guns, sporting guns. Is there any evidence that, as long as they're regulated, here's the evidence that it might not be a bad thing. And even when in the case of assault weapons and fully automatic weapons, if they're regulated. You got to have some rules, though. It's like you got to keep the weirdos and the psychos. In some and basically what I'm saying is this is what you do. You regulate around the edges the things that are logically or empirically are problematic and you have to control, like cryptocurrency. It's pretty obvious now that if you don't regulate do you abolish the banking system and go to communism? Well, no, that's obviously that doesn't work. You end up with a holiday in Cambodia. But if you have no regulation at all, that's why the bottom dropped out of the stock market over speculation. That was the first stock market drop. Was with the tulip bulbs, the Dutch, again, going back to the Dutch. First major corporation, first stock market. And what did they speculate on? Tulip bulbs. What could be more tulip bulbs? How harmful what could be more, how could a tulip bulb hurt somebody? Well, in a way it did. What is this, breaking news? Trump released a new video. Why did they say? Why did the Trump? I got on a Trump list. I must have done something conservative, but I don't. I hate him. Oh, Covenant. They're thanking me for giving money to homeless kids because I was a runaway at one time and I was homeless and it did not work out well for me. Kind of fucked up my whole life. Was it a choice I made? I don't know what to say about that. I really don't. I always felt I did something to myself, but maybe people with mental illness they do all kinds of crazy things. Oh, I'll plug this back in. Excuse me, you're gonna watch me. Yeah, I got things going off. I got Alexa reminding me that my own farts smell okay, and this phone.
When should I remind you?
Every 24 hours.
At what time would you like the first reminder?
In an hour.
Okay, I'll create a reminder for every 24 hours starting at 8:08 p.m.
And what'll remind Alexa? What is my reminder?
Here are the upcoming reminders. My own fart smell okay. Every 24 hours at 8:08 p.m. My own fart smell okay. Every 12 hours. Next due tomorrow at 6:12 a.m. And Echo Dot to get up doctor's appointment on Monday at 9 a.m.
See, I'm obviously someone who would tell Alexa that he likes the smell of his own farts. I'm supervised. Don't worry though; they keep an eye on me. Getting back to what I was saying though is sexual assault rates have actually dropped dramatically, as have teenage pregnancies. So it's questionable whether pornography actually leads to sexual assault. It might do the opposite. But my reasoning is that's no reason to legalize child pornography because that is an aberration. Or it also might. I also don't think some forms of pornography that are legal. I don't think they should be. Kind of hypocritical, but where they tie people up and they show them being tortured and stuff like that. I don't think that's healthy. I think that appeals to a prurient interest. I don't know if I'd say everybody, but it's a dark thing. I don't think that it's necessarily evil to like to watch people fuck, as long as you're not into like. Here's the thing: if you want to watch a movie where people are like shooting and stuff like that, war movies, but and then porn movies. But if you combine the two with violence and sexual assault, I think that is evil. I think that is evil and bad. Some things just shouldn't be mixed, like gasoline and matches, or alcohol and guns. I was talking to a guy who was a Christian, and I said, "You know how many people, domestic violence, they get drunk on a Saturday night and they get in an argument with their wife and they shoot him." He says, "I don't drink. I never drank. I mean, I had other problems, but I never was an alcoholic before Jesus." And this is the other thing about I get a little tired of people thinking that Jesus solves everybody's problems, because if you look at the statistics, there's probably more domestic abuse and violence in the South than there are in other places, and there are plenty of people that don't need religion that are perfectly well behaved. But I'm not saying that religion hasn't helped a lot of people that really were messed up. They did drugs, they beat their wife, they starved their kids, and religion taught them to live right. That doesn't always happen. Some people, they still don't live right when they use religion as an excuse to be abusive, or like these cult leaders. Anything can be abused. Anything can be taken to an extreme. But to say religion is totally toxic, I don't agree with that. Because obviously you have to be logical, but that's biased to say that. There are plenty of examples where religion has helped people live good lives. If you don't drink and you own guns, your chances of being in one of these domestic things, or if you don't do drugs, is less. I mean, you're less likely to do something crazy if you're not under the influence of alcohol or drugs. The people that you really, really got to watch out for are the drug-addicted people that own weapons, even like a machete. But if you've got a collection of automatic weapons, don't have a stroke bill. If you've got a collection of weapons and you're like making meth, cooking meth, or something like that, we're all hopped up on crack cocaine, you're just a mass murder. You're a drive-by shooting waiting to happen, or a mass murder, or before you blow up your meth lab, you just might go crazy and kill all your neighbors. It's not a good combination. That's why in a lot of countries, if you have any history of drug abuse or selling drugs or even alcoholism, severe alcoholism, drunk driving, um, domestic violence under the influence, getting in bar fights, they won't issue a gun license. Now, if you're a regular person that doesn't drink or just drinks sociably or responsibly, has a beer every once in a while, of course, that's not a problem. But here's what I think, and everybody's gonna, I think, gonna be unhappy because the liberals just want to ban handguns and they want to have like laws like England or maybe even Japan where we just get rid of guns. I don't think that's necessary, and I don't necessarily think that's healthy. Do I think that's going to lead to less crime? Well, that's basically what the law is in Mexico. I mean, there's like one government armory where you can go and buy a gun, and that's one place in the whole country. And Mexico's pretty big. Alexa, which is bigger, Mexico or France?
Mexico is 758,000 square miles, which is 509,000 square miles larger than France. France is 249,000 square miles.
Alexa, how many people live in Mexico?
In 2020, the population of Mexico was 127 million people.
See, that's a big country, and there's just one place in the whole country where you can buy a gun. So basically, you have to be pretty rich. But Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Mexico?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Mexico was 19.3 murders per 100,000 people.
Alexa, what is the homicide rate in the United States?
As of 2015, the murder rate in the United States was 4.9 murders per 100,000 people.
Yes, see, it's higher now, though. Alexa, do you know what the homicide rate was in 2022 in the United States?
The closest answer I know is from 2015,
Yeah.
when the United States' murder rate was 4.9 murders per 100,000 people.
Well, it's a lot higher now because they loosened up a lot of the gun laws and they made it easier for people to walk around with guns. And after the COVID thing, there was just a tsunami of bad legislation. First of all, well, it's not legislation, but bad behavior. Everybody went out and bought a gun. Millions of people that never owned a gun bought a gun. And all of a sudden the crime rate started going up. And to be fair, the other thing, which might even be worse, was this defund the police thing. Now, I'm not for police brutality, and I'm not for the shenanigans, and I don't like giving police too much power. But even a bad police force is better than none at all. And here's the cities that defunded the police, that were just down on the police and didn't give them any support, and prosecuted them and cut the funding. You look at their homicide rate; it like doubled overnight. Cities like San Francisco, where you got these flash mobs, as long as you don't steal more than $1,000, and as long as you don't commit a violent crime, I don't know, running into a store and breaking windows and taking shit, that's kind of violent to me. I don't know, but they don't count it as violent. The police wouldn't do anything. And that led to all kinds of mayhem. I'm sorry, I'm picking my teeth. Basically because I'm 63 years old and I don't have dentures or anything. They're all worn down now, I realize. I've got like nubs in a couple places. I can still chew with them, but they're not pretty. My teeth are not pretty to look at. Laws aren't any good unless like in Singapore, if you get caught with an illegal gun, 5 years in prison. If you get caught with 2 illegal guns, it's 10 years. 3 illegal guns, and there's a rebuttal presumption that you're selling them. And they'll probably hang you. And that's how they got rid of their gun problem in Singapore. Going back, who's going to watch this? But if someone might, they might see that I actually went back to that. That's how Singapore solved its crime problem. No guns, virtually no legal guns. And illegal guns, if they catch you with one, they lock you up. And if they catch you with 2 illegal guns, they lock you up for twice as long. They catch you with 3 illegal guns, and they just assume that you're like quantities. Like this isn't for your own personal consumption. You're gonna sell these guns, and they hang you like with drugs. If you're a drug dealer, if you're a drug taker, they're strict with you. You're going to jail for 5 or 10 years. And they give you one chance. They try to drug treatment you. It's kind of harsh treatment, but they try to give you a chance to get off. They catch you again, they're going to keep locking you up for longer and longer periods. If they catch you out on the street with a gun and you like point it at anyone or you shoot it, that's the death penalty. They don't mess around. Here, look what they did in Canada. They went after law-abiding gun owners. Here's where the conservative comes in, where the conservatives say, "Oh well, he's halfway sensible." They went after the law-abiding, licensed, vetted gun owners who aren't really the problem to take their guns. Meanwhile, in Toronto and Montreal and these big cities, the people that got caught with illegal guns, they reduced their sentences and let them out because, oh, maybe they're members of a poor, oppressed minority or someone messed up. They had an unhappy childhood and we have to rehabilitate them. No, hello, I'm sorry. You don't favor people because of their race, any race. It's like everybody should be treated equally. You look at the crime. You don't make excuses. White, black, Asian, Martians, wherever these people are coming from, if you catch them with an unlicensed handgun and drugs, you don't say, well, maybe we can rehabilitate them and then we'll arrest the law-abiding hunters. You go after the problem. And 90% of the problem in Canada is you Americans. It's illegal, this flood of, because there's no regulation in the United States, this flood of illegal weapons coming into their country. It's very easy to what Justin Trudeau would do. Maybe he's just too much of a coward to do it. You station people on the border. What is this thing with borders? And you check every car and you make sure that people aren't smuggling guns into your country. Now, that might offend Americans. That might offend us. I'm sort of an American. Like it or not. You don't like it. I don't like it. But my spaceship landed here and I can't seem to get home. The vast majority, 70, 80, 90, different studies say different numbers. But 75 to 90% of the guns that are causing the problems in Canada, they're all illegal and they're all coming. They're all. And I think that's it. 90% of the guns that cause the problem are illegal guns. They're not licensed, and 75% of those illegal guns are guns that came across the border. So the guns that are causing the problem, I'm not sure what the number is. It's like 80, 90% of those illegal guns, which are the guns that are. It's not people committing crimes with legal guns. That's pretty rare. It's not saying it never happens. But gun owners in Canada are vetted. And that's what I'm saying. If you go through the licensing process and the training, and they give you the background check, they're not treating you like a criminal, by the way. They're trying to weed the criminals. They don't let have guns. Your reward is you get to have the gun. The people that are treating like criminals are the people that say, no, I'm sorry, you can't have a gun. You beat your wife. You drink too much. You robbed the liquor store. You stabbed somebody. You're mentally ill. You think you've got transistors in your teeth. You smoke too much marijuana. And a lot of these mass shooters I've noticed, a lot of them smoke a lot of weed. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a scientist and I know that weed's doing it, but I think they should do it. I think they've done studies that show that people that smoke a lot of weed, not like your occasional smoker, but like the weed equivalent of an alcoholic, someone that just is either psychologically addicted or just likes to smoke a lot of weed. It's fucked up their brain and they're psychotic and they're violent. Okay, I'm sorry, but they've got studies that show that. You can go on the internet and look that up. I don't have to. I mean, I'm just talking into here. I don't have to do that, but it's there. Marijuana studies have shown that over the long term, and it's not just kids, marijuana will use, and it's not just. Well, yeah, I mean, people use the younger you start drinking, the more likely you're going to be an alcoholic with brain damage. The younger you start smoking marijuana, the more likely it's going to do your brain damage because your brain, you're not supposed to be putting chemicals in your brain while it's developing. 25 is kind of old though, really, because I don't know. You're gonna treat people like kids till their brains fully formed. I mean, people used to get married at 13 and their brains weren't fully formed. You know, society kept an eye on them. You know, I don't think this constant infantile treating young adults as infants is the answer. But at the same time, I mean, because like in Switzerland, if you're 18, you can own a handgun, but you got to get a permit. And if you misbehave, if you don't pay if you don't pay your traffic tickets, they come and say, you know, we're revoking your gun permits. And where are they? You were caught beating your wife. There are a number of things, and if you leave it someplace where if someone steals your gun, they hold you responsible because you were supposed to you had a fiduciary capacity to keep it in a safe place. It's not like a hammer or a knife. It's a gun's different. A gun's a lot more deadly. Some guns, no. I mean, some guns you don't even need a permit in Switzerland. You can just, like a single shot hunting rifle, as long as it's made in Switzerland, and it's not a military weapon like a bolt action, you don't need a permit. You need a special permit for anything military, even semi-automatic. Now, there's some increased restrictions put on fully automatic weapons that didn't used to be there. You have to have a special permit. Some people think that they ban automatic weapons in Switzerland. They're not quite banned. But you got to have a cause. You got to have a damn good reason to have an automatic weapon. They want to know what you want that thing for. You can't go walking around in public open carry. That's unheard of. That's not civilized. They do not let you can walk around and drink beer actually at the gun range, which I thought is weird, but doesn't seem to cause a problem there. So they let them do it. But there's no open carry, and permits to carry concealed weapons are extremely rare. And again, you have to have a good reason. Italy's the same way, although they've loosened up their concealed carry laws and their self-defense laws. You can get a special permit for a defense weapon. The problem was a lot of people were just buying hunting weapons. They weren't going hunting, and they were keeping them for self-defense. I mean, well, can you blame them? I mean, but the thing is, people think, oh, Italy, mafia. There's not a lot of crime. Alexa, what is the murder rate in Italy?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Italy was 0.7 murders per 100,000 people.
Alexa, what is the murder rate in Switzerland?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Switzerland was 0.5 murders per 100,000 people.
Alexa, what's the murder rate in Czechoslovakia?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, the murder rates have been dropping since 1992 from approximately 28 murders per 100,000 people to approximately 10 murders per 100,000 people.
No, wait. She gets things wrong. Alexa, what is the homicide rate in the Czech Republic?
As of 2015, the murder rate in the Czech Republic was 0.7 murders per 100,000 people.
You can conceal carry in Czech. The open carry, that's a no-no. But you can conceal carry in the Czech. You can own a fully automatic weapon. But in order to get those things, you have got to be licensed. They make you train in first aid. They make you see a psychiatrist. They vet you. Now, this is my hour convoluted thing that I was going to tell you about. That there are restrictions on abortion under Roe v. Wade. States were allowed, after the first trimester, you were allowed to restrict things. It wasn't like unlimited, abortion on demand. Although I guess in some states you could. But other states, it's like if you don't like that, you can regulate it. As soon as the fetus is viable. I agree that there should be certain restrictions on abortion. Late-term abortions, yeah. But my sister's a doctor, and she told me, she said, look, Bill, you want the real dope on this. I mean, I'm not. She doesn't like to rag on other people's religions or anything. She didn't criticize anybody. She says this is the real deal. They never do those. Maybe she's just talking about Ohio, but they never. This is even before they passed Dobbs. They never do those late-term abortions unless someone's life is in danger. There's something seriously wrong with the fetus. Okay, they don't. That's not a cosmetic deal there. They don't just yank a fully formed baby out of a woman's womb because she's had a bad day. The fetus is dead, okay? The fetus is dead. There's necrosis setting in, sepsis. There's something seriously wrong. And it's it's going to affect the woman's health. And that's the way it's always been. This whole late-term abortion thing was made up. But do I think there should be late-term abortions? Well, if the woman's life's in danger, or there's the fetus is just like completely mangled or warped or some kind of mutate, something is seriously wrong. And doctors decide, yeah, okay. So there should be regulations as far as abortion go. It shouldn't be just like unlimited. I got a coat hanger, you got a baby, let's go. There have to be regulations. I mean, even when abortion was legal, you couldn't. There were certain. You had to be in a healthcare clinic. There had to be certain regulate. Like they caught that one doctor who was just not following the rules, and he had like the fetuses all. It's just like yuck. And I think they put him in jail. And so they should. And so they should. Here's how I feel about guns now after all this deregulation and everything like that. This open carry thing's got to be banned. I think there's got to be like a nationwide ban on open carry. That's just stupid. Concealed carry, I think everybody should require a license to conceal carry. That maybe you can leave that up to the states. There should be a federal law about gun licensing and registration. Everybody in the country can have a say on that. And I guess because I'm not a big booster for the Second Amendment, but it's there, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. Shall not be infringed. Any regulations they put on this so-called right have got to be rational for a good reason and not arbitrary. So registration, I know that there got people out there who would see this. If anybody's going to see it, that's the great thing about posting this. No one's going to want to watch this, sit through my bullshit, but I get to put it up. So maybe sometime in the future, someone will see it and say, oh, God, this is what, listen to this puke liberal commie. Or why didn't he just want to ban guns? Nobody should have a gun. He's awful. He's a part of the, he's a white man, part of the patriarchy. He shouldn't be allowed to have an opinion. See, both extremes, I'm sick of them. But here's what I actually believed. Like in Switzerland or the Czech or in Italy, as long as they do a background check and they find out you're not a criminal, you're insane, you train so you can use the gun, I don't think you need to be in a gun club in either country. Some countries you have to be in a gun club to own certain weapons. You can have high-capacity magazines in Italy, but every high-capacity magazine needs to be licensed and registered. People do it, and it's fine. And again, their homicide rate is not high. It's not high. It's lower than it is in England, where they have really, really, really serious. Alexa, what is the homicide rate in the United Kingdom?
As of 2014, the murder rate in the United Kingdom was 0.9 murders per 100,000 people.
Alexa, what is the homicide rate in France?
As of 2016, the murder rate in France was 1.4 murders per 100,000 people.
Alexa, what's the homicide rate in Germany?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Germany was 1.2 murders per 100,000 people.
Wow, yes, it's considerably higher. It's like double. And the laws are stricter. So you see, this is complicated. It's not just a matter of how strict you make the laws. There are other factors. Oh, God, I can't even bend over. My fingers don't work. I can't pick. Okay, here it is. Oh, and my leg is leaking. I hate this. I should probably put my compression socks back on. It's horrible. My leg's all wet. Oh well. Oh well. I think the battery in my phone's not working good either. Let me take a look here. I'll get back to what I was talking about. Just give me a minute. I get distracted easy. I'm old, I'm senile, and I'm mentally ill. Oh, 100%. Okay. 14 seconds ago. All right. But I think the battery's starting to go on that. The problem is I keep it too charged. I've heard that that's a problem, and it's like obsessive compulsive behavior. All right. So here's the thing. All these societies, it's pretty easy to get a gun for a law-abiding citizen. But you got to have a reason. Okay, you have to present a reason, except for like hunting weapons. In Switzerland, if you want to switch up shotgun, they don't say, "Well, what do you want the shotgun for?" I think even in Great Britain, up until very recently, even now, they'll say, "Well, what do you need the shotgun for?" And then people put "not applicable," and the local constable, if he knows him, goes, "You're supposed to put a reason down here." And NA, all right, just forget it. I know you're a good bloke. You're gonna shoot at the bunny rabbits and the rats and all the vermin that's eating your food, eating your crops. But you're supposed to give a bloody reason. It depends on the county. Even in Britain, if you come up with some, I think I need a pistol for humane dispatch. Some constables will say, "All right, I'm not going to do the English accent because my English accent is bloody bad." They'll plug up the holes on your revolver and they'll give you like 2 or 3 shots because they figure if you can't dispatch an animal in 2 or 3 shots, others will let you have the whole revolver. And sometimes I think people have been gotten away with automatic weapons. What the hell you need a 9mm with 9 bullets in it? But people get away with it. It's like a loophole that some people can use. So are handguns illegal in Great Britain? Yes, it's like a yes and no. I don't necessarily think we should ban handguns like they just did in Canada. I think that's an overreach. I think C-21 is a travesty. It's probably going to be the death knell for the Liberals in Canada. They've that their economic policies have. Well, I mean, the rest of the world is in a mess, but with inflation and the carbon tax, a lot of things they were doing were burdening average people with heavy taxation, and what they're doing with those tax revenue, I'm not quite sure it's all that effective. I would still vote for them. Now, I'm going to shock a lot of people, and I hope nobody actually sees this. If I lived in Canada, I would seriously think about. I would definitely vote NDP. Because even though the NDP is economically left wing, they've come out in opposition to C-21, at least as far as banning certain hunting rifles. I don't know how they feel about the handgun ban or the assault weapons ban, but they are objecting to the overreach of C-21. The problem with the Conservatives is they would liberalize. They make it easier to get a gun. I think the gun laws, the way they are in Canada, you got to get a license. You got a 5-round minimum on 5-round minimum. You're limited to 5 rounds in your magazine. I think one thing they can do to stop the mass shootings is they've got these magazines that are pinned, and all you have to do is take the pin out, and you got a regular magazine. That's too easy. They should make magazines that only hold 5 rounds, and enough of this pinning shit. You fix the gun so the magazines can only hold 5, and you make it a serious offense to have a magazine that holds more. Or here's one thing you could do. You could make the high capacity magazines, put that in the restricted category. So you have to have a special license to own high capacity magazines, and you can only take them to and from the gun range. You're a collector. Like some countries, they'll allow you to have the high capacity magazines, but you have to have a collector's license, which means you probably aren't poor, and it's probably not that easy to get a collector's license. Why do you want poor people running around with semi-automatic rifles with high capacity magazines? I'm sorry. Poor people need health care, they need education, they need job training. The last thing a poor person needs is the temptation to go out and commit a crime with a Saturday night special. It's just like, that's the one thing you're going to do for poor people. You're going to let them easy access to a gun. They can't pay their heating bills. They're hungry. They can't pay their rent. They can't get a job because they weren't properly educated. But you're going to give them a gun. Now, if you're wealthy and successful and you got a lot of property to guard, and you're responsible. I mean, you're not like out there waving your gun around at poor people. I think you could make an argument that someone like that is. I mean, it's not egalitarian, is it? It's not a right. It's a privilege that you have to earn. And if you're a successful person and you have a long history of not doing violent things and being a useful member of society, and you own a lot of stuff and a lot of land, and you're worried about criminals, you should be able to apply for a license, as long as the people getting the license are fair-minded. If they're not, in a lot of countries, if the cop won't approve your license, you can appeal to like the Supreme Court or something, like a court. You can appeal to a court and say, well, I don't think that I don't think this law enforcement officer, I think he's being mean to me. I think he's like playing favorites. He doesn't like me for some reason. I'm being unfairly. Good God, look at him. I've been blabbing for an hour. I feel I'm being discriminated against. I really, really do. This is not right. Oh, I haven't mentioned the transgender thing. I probably shouldn't. I don't hate these people. I think they should have rights. Do I think gay people are mentally ill? No. I knew too many gay people when I lived in San Francisco. They're, in some ways, they're more sane than a lot of straight people I know. The transgender thing, this is the thing. I knew a lot of gay people. Not that I'm gay. I knew gay people that were like prejudiced against transgenders. They thought they were, if you want to get dressed up like a woman and go out in public or whatever, I don't think you're necessarily hurting the rest of the public. But I think a lot of these people that I met, there's something. They're definitely confused. They need mental help. My only objection really to this whole transgender thing is pushing it on kids. Oh, he thinks he's 11 and he thinks he's a girl, or he's a girl. She's a girl and she's really a boy. And the hormone things. You wait till they're 18. Maybe you wait till they're 21, because kids get confused and kids get sad, and you're not helping kids by doing this, because a lot of them, I've seen a lot of interviews where they change their mind and they says, I never should have done this. Actually, the suicide rate goes up higher after the surgery, because people realize that they're not happy. They were just, I don't know if they wanted attention, but they didn't know what was wrong, and their feelings were wrong. You don't let kids drink. You don't let kids go. You tell them when to go to bed. They don't let them drive cars. They're not allowed to own property. They don't have credit cards. There are lots of things you have to have you have to protect kids from. And for the love of God, if a kid says that they think they're a different sex, that doesn't mean shit. You take them to a psychiatrist. You get them help. You don't judge them and beat them, but you don't give them hormones so that they can grow tits, and then you say, hold still, we're going to cut little Johnny's nuts off and then cut his dick off. You wait. The whole hormone blockers things and everything, wrong. Just wrong. Bad. I'm sorry if you got to wait. Fine. But this whole transgender thing, it came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, everybody wants to switch sexes. See, the whole thing about gay people being gay from the time that they're born, I think that's right. I've known a lot of them, and you can just tell that, oh, this is beautiful. They want to get dressed up in a dress. The transgender thing, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that was just something because I'm older and I've never learned to accept that. But that doesn't seem right to me. That does seem like a mental illness, and not necessarily. And when someone's a heroin addict, and people who do this, what do you do if someone's a heroin addict? You give them more heroin. So, oh well, they go out and steal, and they're always going to be an addict. So you kind of help them by giving them a clean supply of heroin. I don't think you help drug addicts by giving them drugs or an alcohol. You don't help an alcoholic by giving them alcohol. You help them get off of the drugs. You help them get off the alcohol. If someone is suffering from a delusion that they want to cut their toes off, you get them mental help. If someone is suffering from a delusion and wants to cut their tits off or their dick off, you go, oh, well, you're just gender dysphoric. You're trapped in the wrong body. We'll help you. No, you're not helping them. You're pandering to a sick person, and you're not helping anybody. I'm not one of these people that wants to call them freaks or kooks or hang like the Christians that want to throw them in a pit and stone them. I'm not one of those. I'm just there's more than two sides to these things, and I think sometimes, although it's boring and everybody hates it, sometimes the more you stay in the center, the more rational you are. You stick with facts and be dispassionate, and that will usually mean that you're somewhere in the center. And the further away you get in the center, the more you find people are ideological and emotional. And that extremism never works out good. You don't go with the dogma, you go with the facts. Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that, and I'm sorry. And if you're transgender out there, I apologize. I didn't mean to offend you. I just gave my opinion. I don't hate you. I'm not trying to put you down. I guess I did by saying that I think you're mentally ill. I don't think I am mentally ill, and it's like saying, "Oh, well, you're bipolar. Are you trying to disparage?" You get people help. I mean, do I disparage myself? I mean, is it my fault that I'm bipolar and schizoaffective? I don't know. Because I did drugs, I was mentally messed up before. People try to self-medicate. I don't even know. Maybe the devil snuck into me while I was watching Playboy or smoking the wacko tobacco. I don't know. I don't think that's true. It was just like Russian roulette with the old genetics, and the old bipolar came up. Anyways, back to the guns. Do I think guns should be banned? No. Do I think handguns should be banned? No. Do I think semi-automatic rifles should be banned? I think semi-automatic rifles should be treated the way handguns are. They're a problem. Most homicides, it's handguns. And most of these mass shootings, it's the AR-15 type guns. The simple answer is just to make them illegal. And I think that's overreach for more than one reason. First, I'm not necessarily convinced that that's going to do away with the problems. People are still going to get their hands. I mean, in Australia, there's still mass shootings. It's not as bad as it used to be. And there's still as many guns as there used to be. But people take a lever action or a straight pull or a pump action Remington 7615. They figure out ways that they're still running around with guns shooting people. Although, if you look at the statistics in Australia, the homicide rate dropped dramatically. Gun suicides went down dramatically. I think the overall suicide rate went down dramatically. Gun homicides went down by like 75%. The overall homicide rate was cut in half. Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Australia?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Australia was 0.9 murders per 100,000 people.
Alexa, what's the homicide rate in Canada?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Canada was 1.7 murders per 100,000 people.
Yeah, see, that's still high for a European country. I mean, we are a really outlier for a developed nation. Alexa, what is the homicide rate of the United States?
As of 2015, the murder rate in the United States was 4.9 murders per 100,000 people.
See, for a developed nation, Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Estonia?
As of 2015, the murder rate in Estonia was 3.2 murders per 100,000 people.
You see, anything over 2 is high. Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Belgium?
As of 2015, the murder rate in Belgium was 1.9 murders per 100,000 people.
That's high. That's high. Belgium's a gun country. Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Poland?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Poland was 0.7 murders per 100,000 people.
Poland has very strict gun laws, by the way. I was talking to somebody in Poland, and they said it's as hard to get a handgun in Poland as it is in Germany. It's like you have got to have a reason. They don't want you running around with a gun. But their homicide rate's like 1/10 of ours, okay? So they're okay? So obviously the Polish are very civilized people. Their homicide rate is the same as Italy. And despite all the prejudicial attitudes that people might have about Italians and Italian culture, the Italians are extremely civilized people and have a very low crime rate. Italy's a safe country. Again, I'm going to say something that's controversial, and no one's going to watch this. I don't care, but I'm just going to get it out because I keep it inside, and so people know. People can say I'm a bigot or not. I'm just looking at the statistics. Italy's immigration policy for years has been, no, we don't want the the Muslims. We don't want the terrorists. We don't want. If you're not Italian, we don't want you in our country. Go away. Germany had a lot of immigration from Middle Eastern countries. The Netherlands did. Alexa, what's the homicide rate in the Netherlands?
As of 2016, the murder rate in the Netherlands was 0.6 murders per 100,000 people.
Okay, so it's about Switzerland. About 20 years ago, or maybe it was 10 years ago, they really tightened up their immigration policies because they were having problems with like Pim Fortuyn and Theo van Gogh. People were executed. They had Islamic fundamentalists committing these heinous crimes. So a lot of these countries. Alexa, what's the homicide rate in France?
As of 2016, the murder rate in France was 1.4 murders per 100,000 people.
Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Sweden?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Sweden was 1.1 murders per 100,000 people.
See, that's high. Alexa, what's the homicide rate in Denmark?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Denmark was 1 murder per 100,000 people.
Alexa, what is the homicide rate in Norway?
As of 2016, the murder rate in Norway was 0.5 murders per 100,000 people.
What you find, and I hate to say it, but it's just true, a lot of these countries that have, well, I mean, 0.7 is low. One is low. But as you heard there, Norway and Sweden, the homicide rate is double in Sweden. A lot of these countries that had massive immigration from mostly from Middle Eastern Muslim countries, their crime rates were, these used to be the safest countries in the world, and they just aren't anymore. Now, whether this is because of poor populations or because you've got Islamic extremism causing trouble, a lot of times they find that the mullahs are teaching them, don't get an education, don't participate, just live off welfare and suck these societies dry. We're here to take over. These societies are immoral, they're dying. Allah has ordained that we are here and we're going to take over, and any change will be fine. Never mind that they're more prosperous, never mind that they have lower crime rates, less violence against women, that women have rights. That's a bad thing. They don't care about statistics. They're not functioning on the Enlightenment principles of rationality and data. You just shut up and do what you're told, and Islam is there to take over. Now, is that what's happening? Maybe I'm being a little prejudiced, but I think there's a little of that. I think in some of these extremist communities, they want to rape European women because they're whores. They say, you know what? They're walking around half naked. What do they expect? They teach these these white women a lesson. That makes me angry because there's proof that's what's going on in these Muslim communities. You take them from these shithole countries where their life's a living hell, and you try to give them a better life. Of course, now Europeans aren't saints. They wanted you to shovel shit and do the menial jobs, and they're just not doing it, and they're not assimilating. So why would anybody want you in their culture? And so, like Denmark, what happened in the reason Denmark still has a social democratic government and Sweden has a far right party in power is that in Denmark the Social Democrats didn't change any of their policies but one, immigration, and they basically adopted the immigration policies of the far right. We're for all the things, unions, workers' unions, social welfare, workers' rights, women's equality, health care, blah, 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 all the things that we used to be for, but we're changing one thing. No more immigrants. We're not going to do that anymore. This is Denmark. We're going to solve our own problems, and people can stay in their own countries. Kind of sounds kind of right-wing, but that's what they did. They stayed in power. Swedish Social Democrats, they stuck with their old one world, we're all one people, everybody can get along, welcome refugees, you're escaping these horrible conditions that we created, which isn't necessarily true. I think Islam is just a backwards, horrible religion, and they're constantly fighting with each other. That's not racial. Lebanon, you could Lebanon. I haven't met a young lady from Lebanon. She was wonderful, and she was in a low cut dress, and she was working in a bar, but she was raised Catholic. And Lebanon, Beirut was at one time considered the Paris of the Middle East. Lebanon was considered the. Alexa, what is the income tax rate in Lebanon?
Lebanon has a progressive personal income tax system in which the average tax rate increases as the taxable income increases. Lebanon has marginal tax rates ranging between 2% and 20%.
No, that's not a lot. Alexa, what's the capital gains tax rate in Lebanon?
In January 2016, Lebanon's capital gains tax rate was 21.33%.
Well, at any rate, I mean, Lebanon had problems. They discriminated, but how could they? I mean, look at when now they had a Christian majority, and the country was basically so prosperous. Now this isn't a racial thing. This is the same people with different cultures. Okay, same people with different cultures. Islam made inroads into Lebanon. Now it's just a war zone. The people killing each other. And the same people that said, you shouldn't discriminate against the Muslims. When the Muslims got the upper hand, they didn't say, well, now we're going to discriminate against you. They just came to kill them. And it's constant war. Because this is going to sound like prejudice, but I'm with Christopher Hitchens. Religion, I think all religions have this negative aspect, but there's just something. We went through the Enlightenment periods, so Christianity was tempered by logic and reason and rationality. The Islamic world never went through a period of enlightenment, they don't have a secular sphere in most Islamic countries. It's just theocracy, and theocracies are bad. Look at Saudi Arabia. Women can't even drive there. They're wrapped in head to toe. If you disagree with them, if you say anything bad about Islam, they kill you. And they're here to conquer. And again, not racially. If the people that assimilate into the culture, they seem fine. And it's like Lebanon, same race, not different race. But with the Christian religion, Lebanon was pretty much like a Mediterranean European country like Greece or Portugal. Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Lebanon?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Lebanon's GDP per capita was $4,136. GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Jordan?
From realscreen.com. Apparently, the UK has the highest spending on new TV programs of any country, at $75 per capita.
Alexa, what is the Jordanian GDP per capita?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Jordan's GDP per capita was $4,103.
Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Egypt? Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Egypt?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Egypt's GDP per capita was $3,699.
Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Palestine? Yeah, see, it isn't even a country. Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Palestine?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Palestine's GDP per capita was $3,664. Okay, GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
Okay, now hold on to your bagel now. Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Israel?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Israel's GDP per capita was $52,170. GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
That's higher than Germany's GDP per capita. Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Germany?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Germany's GDP per capita was $51,200. GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Ireland?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Ireland's GDP per capita was $100,200.
That's higher.
GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
That's higher than Norway or Switzerland or Sweden or any of them. Of course, it doesn't filter down to the average Irish person completely, but they're not a poor country anymore. They're. I mean, it was like the British used. I used to have a British friend, and she used to say, "Oh, we had to take care of the Irish. They're like little children. They drink whiskey and they dance on tables, and they're poor because we have to take care of them." Well, as soon as they got Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Singapore, another country the British used to take care of?
According to another Amazon customer, the GDP per capita is $8.931.
Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Singapore?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Singapore's GDP per capita was $72,790. GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
I actually thought that was higher, but it's higher than ours. Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of the United States of America?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, the United States GDP per capita was $70,250. GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
Wow, we're doing pretty good. Yeah, so, I mean, Biden's not doing bad. Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Canada?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Canada's GDP per capita was $51,990.
Yeah,
GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
They're kind of lagging. They're lagging behind. Their quality of life is how can you? That's the thing about quality of life. There are countries that have significantly lower standards of living, or wealth, that live better. Like the Dutch standard of living is lower than ours. Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of the Netherlands?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, the Netherlands GDP per capita was $57,770. GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
You can go on Wikipedia and get the same thing, but if you want me to ask Alexa a question, just leave a question below and I'll ask her. And she's not always right, but it's fun. Or you can get your own Alexa. All right, where was I? Okay. Alexa, what is the GDP?
Oklahoma is located in the southwestern United States. It shares a border with Arkansas, Colorado, Kansas, Missouri, New Mexico, and Texas.
Okay. I said okay, and you tell me about Oklahoma. Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of Denmark?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, Denmark's GDP per capita was $68,010. GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
Okay, these countries have GDP per capita lower than ours, but if you look at quality of life indexes, and I'm not talking about left wing, I'm talking like bank and human rights development, they're higher than us as far as like life expectancy, health, housing, blah, 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 blah. Quality of life and standard of living are not the same thing. You can live a better life on less money if your money is spent properly. And we waste a lot of money here. We drive around in big cars, live in big houses. It's inequitably distributed. So on that, I guess I'm a left-wing kind of guy. I think the Scandinavians or whatever, even the Swiss have a wealth tax. Alexa, what is the wealth tax in Switzerland?
From dailycommercial.com, its wealth tax, which generates 3.3% of Swiss tax revenue, is paid by middle-class taxpayers with a net worth as little as about $100,000 in US dollars.
Alexa, what is the wealth tax rate in Switzerland?
From dailycommercial.com, its wealth tax, which generates 3.3% of Swiss tax revenue, is paid by middle-class taxpayers with a net worth as little as about $100,000 in US dollars.
All right, well, they have a wealth tax. It doesn't raise a lot of money, but they've got one. I think we need one too, because their income tax rates are relatively low, but they've got capital gains taxes and the wealth taxes. If you make $1 million in some of these cantons, they were showing of the $1 million you make in income, you're paying about 47% of that in taxes. Local this tax, that tax, income tax, cantonal tax. Oh dear. Oh, it's okay. That might not be good. I might be losing. I might have to shut this down soon. That's usually a sign that I'm. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. That's not good. Oh. I just. I wonder if it cut off the picture. That's not good. All right. Well, maybe that's the sign that I should stop talking. Anyways, let's go back to the gun control thing because that's what I was talking about. Do I think guns should be banned? No. Not even handguns or not even fully automatic weapons, because I mean, there's a federal. But do I think these things should be regulated? And when I say regulated, I mean licensed and registered, like they are in Switzerland or the Czech Republic or in Italy. I think that's the way to go. As long as you, and a lot of people in those countries think that that's good. As long as you are a law-abiding citizen and you're willing to go through the paperwork. If you're law-abiding, you don't have anything to worry about. If you're a drunk, or you're a petty criminal, or you're a spousal abuser, or you got a history of mental illness, and especially if you're violent, forget it. You're not getting a gun. And I think that's how they keep the crime rate down. They don't restrict guns from the law-abiding. They look to vet people. You say, well, criminals are going to get guns anyways. Yes and no. I mean, the elite criminals, if you really want a gun, I guess you could go out there and get them. But if you just, I'll tell you my story about Canada, and then I'm going to hang up. I had a friend who was a felon. When he was about 16 years old, he ran away from home and he decided he wanted to go to Toronto. He didn't have any money in his pocket. He pulled out a pocket knife. I guess something like this, because, people don't have guns in Canada. Well, they do, but not to the extent we do. Take me to Toronto. He hopped out of his car in a traffic jam outside of Toronto and he flagged down a cop, and my friend went to prison for 3 years. When he got out, we were walking by I guess I knew this. I knew he was, but he was Canadian, so he didn't seem that bad to me. I remember one day he said to me, this is how polite Canadians are. He says, no offense, you seem like a good guy. But I'll just be honest with you. If someone offered me $50,000, I'd kill you. I just want to know what kind of person you're dealing with. He didn't know that was what you call a sociopath, but he knew that was probably not the sort of person that I was used to. So polite Canadians. So one day we're walking by a gun store, and he says, I hate the gun laws here. And I was thinking, oh, guns, I'm not into them. I said, what's wrong with the gun laws here? He says, you have to have a license. And I said, well, what do you care? Get a license. And he says, I'm a felon. I can't get a license. I said, well, I think I saw taxi drivers. Don't you have people that'll sell you guns, on the black market? And he goes, look disgusted. He says, this isn't New York. This isn't the United States. This country isn't flooded with illegal guns. It's not that easy. They got strict laws here. And even if you did find somebody and you bought an unlicensed gun, that's a big problem. Some people are willing to take that risk. I'm not a law-abiding citizen. I spent 3 years in prison for violent with a knife. I don't really want to go back. Not really. I'm not looking forward to that. Some people, you're hardcore criminals probably, he said. Me, no. I'm not really looking forward to that. Of course, Canadians, I think, are just more law-abiding. Even their criminals are more law-abiding. But to say that, you can find a gun, the harder you make it to get a gun. And the thing about Canada is, they do have a glut of illegal guns up there now, and they're brought over from Detroit and Buffalo and New York, and mostly up from Virginia. These southern states where you can just put a trunk full of guns in your car and just take them to the Canadian border. What they need to do is not like a handgun ban or a ban on semi-assault weapons or whatever. I think anything that looks military, let's say you make them all restricted weapons. You make them all restricted weapons. They're all restricted. Bad weapon. You put a magazine capacity limit on it. I think 10 is more reasonable than 5. 5 seems kind of, I don't know. And say, like, in Italy, if you want a 30-round magazine, you can have it. You just got to apply for a separate permit, like a collector's license. Well, why do you need 30 rounds? I'm a collector. It goes with the gun. It just doesn't look right with the stupid 10-round magazine. And they go, we're watching you. You got a good, clean record, but, you know, you can lose. Don't be messing around here. You got to keep your nose clean. We're watching you. And you think that doesn't have an effect on crime? It does. You know, the more you restrict these, so even the magazine limits, you don't necessarily have to limit it to 10. You can make a special law for the higher magazines. That's what they did in a lot of countries in Europe. If you want a 30-round magazine, what we got here?
This is a reminder. My own fart smell okay.
See?
This is a reminder. My own fart smell okay.
Fortunately, I haven't farted, but evidently, according to Alexa, my own fart smell okay. I guess I told her to say that. Anyways, I've been talking for a long time, and why I needed to get this out, I did, because I argue with a lot of people, and you want to know, I'm a bit of an internet troll. If you want to know how I really feel about guns, and I'm kind of like a radical centrist. I'm like a miserable, obnoxious, center of the road thing. I'm not for like people running around with bazooka. I think they should be regulated. I think there have to be limits. I don't want to abolish capitalism. I want to regulate it. You know, and I believe that you can make reasonable compromises, which is a weird thing for a mentally ill person to say. But I think my problem is regulating my emotions. If I get in a stressful situation, I turn into a different person. I'm not saying multiple personalities, but you put me in the wrong situation, and God forgive me, I become kind of a Mussolini supporter. I think, you know, or Leon Trotsky. I mean, I get really angry at the rich people. Once I calm down and think rationally again, I'm just back to being a moderate social democrat. Got nothing against the gays, get married, the whole transgender thing. I don't hate you. I respect your right to be who you are. I think you got to stay out of the schools, though. I really do. Parents don't want you teaching them that to their kids. And as long as their parents aren't fucking their kids or beating them with a tire iron, you got to respect their right to raise the kid the way they want to. I mean, within reason. But it's none of your damn business. And it's not up to the teachers to decide how to indoctrinate these kids. You got to respect the parents' rights. Once the kid's an adult, the kid can make up its own mind. I mean, we're brainwashing. You are 18, you're 21, then you get to think for yourself. And, you know, it's anything that goes. But I'm not saying anything disrespectful to the gays. I respect you. You have full rights. The transgender thing, I'll just be honest with you. I think there's a definite mental illness increment in that whole thing. And I think before you go chopping off your winky or growing tits, or having your tits cut off, see a psychiatrist. Make sure that that's the right thing for you, because once you do those things, it's hard to reverse. And I don't want you to be on. I mean, it's not that it's any of my business, but it makes me sad to think that you'll be even more miserable than you are now. I think you should be happy. And I'm just not necessarily sure that changing your sex is going to do it for you. I mean, do you see that guy some of those guys that are girls, I mean, plus they beat the girls up when they do the sports things. That's not fair. But I mean, there's some dude that's in the military. He's got that Biden hired. I think I remember what he looked like before, but he has one ugly woman. I mean, I wouldn't date him. I mean, he seems happy. He's got a big smile on his face. He's wearing a dress. That's what, dude. If that would make you happy, fine. But I don't know. I look at that and I go, what has happened to our society? But again, no hatred involved. I apologize. I'm just being honest. Maybe I need to be educated. All right. I'm not pointing my finger and saying that there's something wrong with you. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Now, to the gun people, I've listened to your argument, and as you can probably tell, you've made a tremendous effect on me. I'm not for banning guns anymore. I realize that. Am I for people being able to go into Walmart and buy machine guns? Or especially this thing about walking around in public or constitutional carry? I am so against that. Concealed carry, you should at least have a permit. And then they wonder why, since they passed all of these constitutional carry laws, why our homicide rate has just nearly doubled overnight. Now, part of that is this defund the police thing. That's no good either. Our crime rates, I mean, you don't want to hear this, but our crime rate started to drop radically when Clinton signed that, that first gun control bill that that banned anything over a 10-round magazine and banned some assault weapons. But that's not all that he did, and I don't think that's the big part of why the crime rate went down. He gave money so that they could hire a lot more police and to increase mandatory minimums, maximum sentence or minimum. If they caught you with drugs, they locked you up forever, and that had an effect on crime. Of course, it had a disproportionate effect on minorities, and the minorities, and that does, it just ruined somebody's life, but it dropped the crime rate, man. It just did. So don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Maybe we should rethink this whole letting people out of jail early. Just give people opportunity so that they can work, so they don't have to be in crime. But basically what you do is you're encouraging people to be criminals by letting them out early. But I'm telling you, the assault weapons ban, it had a little effect. It had a little effect. Whether it was worth it or not to infringe on your right to run around with a machine gun, I don't know. But it had when they in the 2004 when the assault weapons ban, it had a time limit, and when that time limit ran out, the Republicans wouldn't renew it. That's when the homicide rate started to inch up. That's when because between 1995 and 2005, it went down dramatically. And then it started to inch back up because we didn't have an assault weapons ban anymore. So you say that had no effect on it. We got to do something to regulate these guns. I'm just not sure how we do it. And it may not necessarily require us to ban handguns and semi-automatics. Maybe if we just regulate them more tightly. Because even in Switzerland, they do. The regulation on handguns and semi-automatic military-style weapons is a lot stricter than it is on a hunting rifle. But can you get a semi-automatic military weapon and point it at a paper target? Yeah, but you can't walk around in public with it. And getting concealed carry license it's pretty much unheard of because there really isn't a lot of crime in Switzerland. You don't need to, and they don't want to encourage people walking around in public with guns because they're sensible people, and they realize that that's just going to cause problems. So I think that's enough. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. You can leave a comment, or you don't have to leave a comment. Probably won't. But if I'm leaving some stupid comment on your gun site because I'm in a bad mood and I'm trying to troll you and I'm angry about some mass shooting, you can look at this and see that I'm not really an extremist. I'm a FUD, basically. I'm a FUD. Basically, what I think of is hunting's fine. Maybe I should be against it because it's killing the cruel. I'll tell you what's cruel, though. What's cruel is these factory farms. These animals, they get to run around and frolic in the woods, and then as long as you're a responsible hunter, you take them out. I guess you don't pop them in the head, do you? Because that might spoil the antlers. You get them in the heart. You make a good, clean kill. The animal doesn't suffer very much. I'll tell you who suffers. These cows and these factory farms that they're like sitting in their own shit and being force-fed antibiotics. They're the ones that are suffering. And I'm against that. I mean, I'm not against eating meat, but I know when I was in Ireland, Ireland's a very liberal place now. I mean, it's changed a lot. Because they're rich. They're not poor anymore, so there's something involved there. They become very socially liberal. Socially liberal. Alexa, what is the income tax rate in Ireland?
Ireland has a progressive personal income tax system in which the average tax rate increases as the taxable income increases. Ireland has marginal tax rates ranging between 20% and 40%.
Okay. I asked somebody about the Irish welfare state, and they said it's middling. It's middling. There's universal health care. There's a national health service, but it's not free. If you're poor, it's free. If you're old, it's free. They'll send you a bill, but if you don't want to pay, if you don't pay it, they're not going to cut you off. It's like here with the Medicare and the Medicaid. The people in the middle that are working, they pay something, but it's not prohibitive. But it's not universal either. But they don't let people starve. Alexa, what is the corporate income tax rate in Ireland?
Ireland's corporate tax rate is 12.5%.
See, that's how they became prosperous. They cut their corporate tax rate way down, and a lot of American businesses went in there, and a lot of American banks have a lot of money stuffed away in Ireland. Like I said, is that helping the Irish people? A little, enough to make them live a good life. But it's deceptive when you hear that their GDP per capita is $100,000. Does that filter down to the people? Somewhat. Do they live a lot better than the British? Whose GDP? Alexa, what is the GDP per capita of the United Kingdom?
As of the most recent data available, 2021, the United Kingdom's GDP per capita was $46,510. GDP per capita is common proxy for income per person.
Now, is the average Irish middle class person twice as well off as the average person in the UK? Probably not. They're probably the same, or maybe the Irish are doing a little better. But Ireland used to be poor. I mean, their standard of living was, or standard of living, no, their standard of living and their quality of life was both about 2/3 of Great Britain. They were a poor country. Now they're doing a little, on average, they're doing a little better than the British. And if you look at the GDP per capita, it's like they're doing a lot better. But that's deceptive because, like I said, that's money sitting in a bank in Ireland, and the average person doesn't really benefit. It's like Switzerland. Switzerland has a high GDP per capita, but that's money sitting in banks. It's not necessarily filtering down to the Swiss. But Switzerland's an expensive place, and they do better. But it's just not, not all of it. Not all of it filters down. It doesn't all trickle down. Some of it does, though, I think. So, anyways, that's enough of that. I've talked about taxes. I made an enemy of the gay community. I'm sorry. You probably think I'm horrible for saying the things that I did, but I'm for gay marriage, for gay rights. I'm against sodomy laws. You want to put a dress on, that's fine. You're a girl and you want to have surgically attach a wiener, that's fine. But I think you should wait till you're 18 or 21 and talk to a psychiatrist because I think this is not something to be taken lightly. I really, really don't. And I worry that it's like being pushed on kids. Like this is like a fad. It's like how drugs were pushed on. I mean, they weren't pushed, but it was like, oh, the old fogies, they don't. Because we used to think that they used to tell us things like LSD would turn you into a monster and you'd be jumping off buildings and drugs would create maniacs out of you and you'd turn into a rapist. And obviously, that was a little bit of an extreme exaggeration. But after years of being out in the world and seeing what drugs can do to people, what they did to me, I can tell you, you're better off without the drug. You're better off without the cigarettes. You're better off without the booze. So I used to think Mormons were, like, oh, what a bunch of, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't even drink caffeine. What kind of life is that? Why are their lives even worth living? Now, if you're a Mormon and you're watching this, I kind of admire you because your rates of cancer and life expectancy, and I'm kind of a Buddhist. I mean, I don't read Buddhism, but I mean, I kind of believe in reincarnation, and Buddha said all suffering comes from desire. And a lot of the things, I know so many people that were sexually promiscuous in the 80s. They got genital warts, they got herpes. Fortunately, none of them got, AIDS. I had a gay neighbor that had AIDS. A bunch of people die from AIDS when I lived in San Francisco. So it's like you try to have a good time, you're going to pay for it, So, I mean, I don't know if that's God doing that or if that's just, maybe religion is just a react. We live in a very hostile, life is very precarious, and there are a lot of bacteria and microbes, and our bodies are delicately balanced. And when we put these chemicals in, you know how drugs work? They're poisons. And when the brain cells are dying, we feel the euphoria because it makes us feel silly. But alcohol's killing brain cells, man. When you get high from marijuana, it's rewiring your brain up there. It's not good for you. And guns are no joke. Guns are dangerous. But do we have to make them illegal? There are some societies where gun laws are relatively lax, and they've got low crime rates. But when I say they're relatively lax, you still need a permit, and they're still regulated, and they come down really hard on people that are irresponsible with them. Like I said, in Switzerland, if you don't pay your speeding tickets, they'll revoke your hunting licenses for your hunting rifles. So they want to make sure that you're a responsible person. And if they do, I know this was one Swiss guy says, if they catch you with drugs, and he says, this, I don't know if this is true, it sounded a little prejudiced, but this is what he told me. Almost all of our drug dealers are Romanians or like foreigners. And I go, why pick on the Romanians? It sounded like prejudice. But he says most of our people, drug peddlers, are from outside of Switzerland. They come in to make money. They're pimps, and they sell drugs, and they sell their women, which is, that sounds terrible to say, but this is what this guy was telling me. And he said, basically what they do if they catch someone selling drugs is they deport them because they're an immigrant, and we just send them back to their own country. If we catch them with drugs and guns, we realize this is a really dangerous person. You combine the two, and this is a real threat for Switzerland, and we want to discourage this. You don't go back to sneak across the border again. Instead of just being deported for selling, if they catch you with a weapon, any sort of weapon, you're looking at 5 years, maybe more, depending on how high up the food chain you are. They don't like the drugs and the guns. They do not like it. And they don't like people that mishandle guns or commit crimes with guns. If you commit a crime with a gun, say you punch somebody, that's assault. Say you point a gun at somebody, or even you just wound somebody with a gun. It's hard to wound somebody with a gun, but say you do. You're going to jail for a long time because the potential for real mayhem is there, and they don't like that. So we probably do need some sort of regulation for guns, and unfortunately, it probably won't be the proper sort of regulation. I mean, I don't think we'll ever see handguns banned, but we'll probably, like in California, see them ban pistol grips or cosmetic. The whole cosmetic thing is silly. What they do in some countries is they just ban semi-automatic weapons completely. In other countries, they don't. They say if it's a hunting weapon, that's fine. If it's a copy of a military weapon that's or just a semi-automatic version of it that'll accept a high-capacity magazine, we're going to put it in a different category. You're going to have to get a special license, and you're going to have to keep it in a really, really good safe, and you can only take it to the gun club when we don't want you walking around in public with it. This isn't something that you show off to your neighbors or threaten your girlfriend with, okay? And if you do, God help you. And high-capacity magazines, some countries just ban them outright. Other countries make you get a special license for the magazines. Now, this sounds ridiculous because criminals don't apply to that. But I'm telling you, here's the thing about this: criminals don't follow the law. But here's the thing about people that don't follow the law. It's like this guy that stabbed those 5 kids. Once you catch them, they go to jail. If you follow the laws, you don't go to jail. If you break the laws, maybe you get away with it because you don't get caught. But if you do get caught, you go to jail, and that's the thing. If you break the law, it's not a matter of just making everything illegal. We should probably enforce the laws that we have. That would be another good one. One of the reasons why laws aren't effective is because they're not being effectively enforced. So I think I've babbled long enough. I'm just going to abruptly end this. But I've tried to be reasonable, and the reason why I did this is I want you to know what's going on in my mind. If you think Swiss gun laws are communist, or the Czech Republic's gun laws, or even Italy's gun laws, for Europe, they're relatively liberal. But do I think people should just be able to go to Walmart and then walk around in public with a semi-automatic weapon? That's nuts. There has to be some regulation.